Okay, so in this video, I'd like to go over how to get set up with a build environment on 64-bit Windows so that you can compile PGMcpp from source. I'm then going to show you how to actually build and test PGMcpp, and then finally we'll run an example project to show you how you can get some results out of the software. So if we go back to the repository, in the main README, we're going to be looking at setup. So the first thing we need to note here is C++ setup. What we want to be able to do is just make PGMcpp. But in order to make PGMcpp, we need to be set up to do so. And there's some operating system specific notes on how to do that. We're going to be looking at the Windows notes because we're on 64-bit Windows in this video. And the build environment that I've used for building PGMcpp on Windows is the MSys2 project. So if we go to this link here, you should see this, and you can grab the installer for MSys2. So we'll download the installer. Alright, now that the installer is downloaded, we'll just install MSys2 on this system here. So we'll run the installer. I'll install MSys to the default location, which is just in the C drive. That's fine. Yep. And then we'll just wait for it to install. Okay, so the installation is finished, and we can just run MSys2 now. So once we're in MSys2, this is what it looks like. It's just a simple terminal interface. Let's go back to the directions in the GitHub repo. Right, so now that we have it installed, we need to actually set it up. So we followed this link here, and we've downloaded the installer and installed MSys, and now we need to set up a couple of tools that we'll need. So we can copy this link here, and then just right-click, paste it into the terminal, and it should install the dependencies for us. Just yes to accept, and this will install the compiler and the header and library files that we need. Okay, so now that that installation is finished, we should need to just upgrade our MSys2, and once this is done, the terminal session should just close. Accept the installs to upgrade everything. And yes, at this time it will close now that it's done. Okay, now that that's finished, we need to be using MinGW64 because this is 64-bit Windows. So I'm going to run this application. We get a similar looking terminal session. Alright, so now we need to do a few tests to make sure everything that we need installed has actually been installed. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the new C++ compiler is available. So we run that and we get version info back, so that's installed and MSys2 can find it. And then we also need make, so we can copy this into MSys2, make, and again we get version info back. So we're set up with everything we need to build and test PGMcpp. Now in order to do that, we need to actually have the PGMcpp source code somewhere where it can be found by MSys2. So what I'm going to do here, if I change directory and go up one level, that should bring me to the home folder. So if I go to where we installed MSys2, which we installed in the C drive, go to MSys64 and home. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to copy the source code into this directory. Right, and I'll just open it up. And now in my MSys2 terminal, if I change directory into PGMcpp, so just using tab to autocomplete, and I list the contents of the directory in long form, you see a printout of what it sees in that directory, and that matches what's over here in our file explorer. So just a side-by-side there to show what's going on. So now that we are all set up with our build environment, now is the time to actually build and test PGMcpp, which we can do using this command here. So if I paste this into the terminal session, it'll go off and do its thing, and it'll build PGMcpp for us. Alright, and once the build is complete, a suite of tests is run. On Windows, you'll see a bunch of these error messages pop up. That's normal. That's just the testing the error handling, error detection and handling functionality that's built into the program. And there we go. If you see green passes across the board, you don't get any red fails, then you are all set up and ready to go. So PGMcpp has now been built on your system, and if you look in the binary directory, So once the build has been completed, you should be able to open up the object folder, which was created as part of the build, and you'll see the object files that you can link when compiling your projects. Now the last part of the video I want to go over is how to actually compile and run the provided example project. So if we go into projects, you'll see that there is an example.cpp that's been provided. So I'll just open that up with my editor here. So in C++, this is what an example project looks like, and there's comment blocks in front of each line of code to tell you exactly what it's doing. Essentially, this bit here is reading in an electrical load time series and then actually creating a model instance, etc., etc. So all the documentation is there to walk you through what each part is doing, and the idea is to use this example file as a template for your work if you choose to use PGMcpp in C++. Now, one thing I do want to show is if I go into my source code directory, there is this make file here. So if you're going to be working in C++, you're going to need to keep the make file in mind because the name of your project matters. So here it's looking for, in the projects directory, project name.cpp, and here project name is set to example. So if we go to the file explorer, you'll see that it matches here, example.cpp in the projects directory. So the only part of the make file you should need to touch if you're working in C++ is this project name variable. And finally, to actually compile a project, we're going to invoke the project command, right? That'll compile and run our project for us. So if I go back over here to my msys2, and I do make project, that'll compile and run our example project. So here I'm back in the projects directory. So if I compile and run the example project, what you'll see is the example project has been compiled and run, and this example CPP folder has been created, and this contains the outputs from running the model. So for example, if I go into model, I can look at this summary results file, just open it up in an editor of your choice, and it gives you all of the details of what resulted from running that model. So that's it for this video. So we went over how to get set up with a build environment for PGMcpp. We're using msys2 here. After you've installed and set up msys2, the details of which are in the GitHub repo. So you're following these instructions here for 64-bit Windows. And then once you've set it up, how to compile and run an example project.